there's 5 characteristics to identify your intrapreneur within your organizations. And one of them is resourcefulness. The second one is contextual knowledge of the process. Well, guess what? With those two, just those two in AI, intrapreneurs are the game changers when it comes to the human in the loop for this.
Welcome back to the ACS Portfolio Perspective. I'm Andrew Pace, Chief Client Experience Officer at Asset Compliance Solutions, joined by RJ Grimshaw, Chief Executive Officer of the AI CEO and former Chief Executive Officer of Unify Equipment Finance. RJ is a leading authority on intrapreneurship and applied business growth. As Chief Executive Officer of Unify Equipment Finance, he led a decade-long transformation, growing the company from $14 million to $250 million through execution, team development, and long-term value creation. Now, through able leadership and the AI CEO, he mentors leaders to think like owners and use AI responsibly to scale what matters. He holds financial AI certification from Upstart and has become sought-after voice helping equipment finance professionals navigate AI adoption strategically. RJ, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Andrew. I appreciate that kind opening. I have to give more credit to the team that I was surrounded with at Unify. It had nothing to do with RJ. He was just a crazy visionary out front saying, we can do it and we'll figure it out after the fact. And they just shook their heads and, okay, we'll figure it out, you crazy guy. And but they all bought in, and the good news is that they're still doing extremely well. They had record quarter, and I'm so happy for everyone at Unify what they're doing. So,
well, it's great to have you on. You've been at the forefront of some major changes in our industry, and I know our listeners, will really benefit from your perspective, especially as AI continues to shift how we operate day to day. Let's kick things off with your career shift. You went from leading Unify to launching the AI CEO, a bold pivot. What sparked that move to AI?
Well, I would say the AI piece of it happened by accident. As you mentioned earlier, I love talking about intrapreneurship and speaking and educating around intrapreneurship. And quite honestly, that's where I thought I was going to go with my career or in the next chapter of my career. I always had that in the back of my mind where you would run a company. And this was the third group that I've run in terms of Key Equipment Finance, Everbank, and then Unify. So I thought, okay, I've done it 3 times, been surrounded by amazing people. I've learned from amazing people in our industry, people like yourself and Jesse and Adam Warner, who's recently retired, and just try and learn. And then there's one thing to learn, but I've always had the mindset, I can only learn so much as long as I'm giving out, providing back to the industry. So really what started as intrapreneurship and innovation, right? So many companies talk around innovation. However, innovation is started by the intrapreneur. And then all of a sudden AI happened. And I actually learned my first entry into AI was an organization called Catapult AI. And I actually invested, I have their coffee mug still here. I invested in this company in April 2022. And the reason why I did that, Andrew, is that they had a platform driven from AI that was to process and leverage the book EOS Traction by Gino Wickman. But what Gino Wickman and Traction misses is the KPI component of a business and how it runs. And that's what Catapult was trying to bring to the market. However, timing is everything. And unfortunately, in April 2022, it was just a tad too early. And then all of a sudden, we fast forward to October 2022 and ChatGPT is released. And as soon as I saw ChatGPT, because I was already using AI Catapult, I went all in on leveraging it in terms of just running job descriptions through it for enhancements. My emails was interesting. About a month into using the AI, one of my sales reps comes up to me and says, dude, you got somebody writing your emails now? Because I'm like, no, there's this great tool. And I started teaching and showing how you leverage the tool. And Andrew, this was early on, and many listeners probably won't remember this, but there was a time where ChatGPT, you could actually only use so many tokens or ask it so many questions until it shut down and say, you've used up your allocated tokens until 4:00 this afternoon. So, that was early on in just the beginning of leveraging it, but I saw the immediate power. And then in August of 23, like many banks, and this isn't directed at Bank of Ann Arbor by no stretch of the imagination, because now being on this side of the fence and seeing the amount of fraud that takes place, and you live that every day, to not live it every day, but certain degree of misrepresentation of certain things, they decided to suppress ChatGPT across the bank. However, that decision was primarily made just from a lack of education. As we sat around that room, I was the only one that was leveraging it as a tool, and then I started educating on the tool, and they allowed me to keep it. However, they really weren't comfortable or confident yet to leverage it in the business. Also, after 11 years of growing a business from 14 million to 250 million, sometimes it's time for change for the team as well as myself, and we were really at that spot as well, just in the chapter in my career. So when I went out to start, ABLE, and ABLE stands for Analyze, Build, Leverage, Execute, I really didn't think AI was going to be a component of it. I was using it as a tool, but I never thought that it was going to take off the way that it did. And really, Andrew, the reason what attracted me to this is I had a moment where I thought, if I was still running Unify as an operator, I would not have time to be able to learn these new tools or even try and understand these new tools. So that's when I decided to go all in, which was about August. It was August of last year, to say, okay, my only focus will be relative to learning AI and the tools. By October, I had AI fatigue, just like everybody else. It's too much. It's just, and also, though, I was excited about it. I was talking to everybody about it, but everyone was in different versions of where they were along their journey, and that still is the case. And I pivoted more of an empathetic, more of a put myself in your shoes, first trying to, hey, are you using AI? More having the conversation of, have you thought about it? How have you collaborated with it? And just today, ChatGPT announced agents early this afternoon. And to your point, it's changing too fast. It is changing too fast. It really is. And what's taking place, and if you're listening, you're wondering, where you are in your journey, okay, or where you need to be, don't get caught up in the buzz. Do not get caught up in all the sizzle right now, okay? You're okay. Take a step back in your organization, and as long as you're having conversations around AI, and AI is a big word. It's like technology. It's like over the road. Those are big words. So really, we want to specifically focus on a certain area within AI. Is it literacy and prompting? Is it automation? Is it leveraging your data? So I just went through a lot at you in a quick, a couple minutes here, relative to what I'm doing. The AI CEO. The only reason I came up with that name is the domain was available, and and as a business owner, business person, I'm like, I have to buy this asset. And quite honestly, now I wish I didn't, or I wish I wasn't using it as a business name, because it is a turnoff to certain people. There is a stigma with AI, rightfully so, because there's going to be a lot of fraud. It's causing a lot of change in people's lives. A lot of people, unfortunately, are losing jobs over this. So I'm somewhat hesitant, with the AI CEO, but at the end of the day, I'm just trying to help people within our industry to understand where they can leverage it. And if they don't want to leverage it, that's okay as well. It's their choice.
Yeah. You talk about AI to fatigue. What do you think is driving that?
Just the media at the end of the day. I don't even go on LinkedIn that often anymore. I get turned off by going to LinkedIn, because it's like, we built this and saved this much, and we did this and we did that. And it's all this. Yeah. None of it's true.
Gotcha.
Because here's the thing. At the end of the day, if you really, and I now subscribe because I'm in this I don't want to say inner group, but like, for example, I talk daily with PayPal's lead AI developer engineer. So Rose gives me inside what, not so much proprietary for PayPal, the overarching theme, because you have to cut through the noise. The other thing, Andrew, is a lot of organizations use Copilot within Microsoft, to drive their AI, which is a great start. It's a really good start. However, people get frustrated by it because it's not as conducive to do ideation like ChatGPT or Claude or the other models that are out there.
Gotcha. And what would you say, why do traditional AI rollouts, would you say, fall flat in our space?
It's really deep. Let's talk about automation. Let's
Sure.
start with automation first. The reason why automation falls flat on their face is that in order for automation to work, your SOPs have to be extremely tight. I know at Unify, it was a challenge for us to always continuing updating our SOPs because people had their knowledge in their head. They're busy doing deals. They're busy growing the business. To take time and extrapolate that information out of someone's head, it's challenging. However, with AI tools now, it's much easier. You could actually just articulate what the process is, interview someone, and then you can build out SOPs tied to your process map. And then what we do is we layer in the tasks and KPIs. 3 years ago, we didn't have these tools. You'd have to sit there and on a whiteboard, or I can take a picture of a whiteboard now and draw up an SOP. So the tools are much easier. But the number one reason why AI fails is that people don't understand where to leverage it. And then more importantly, if you're trying to drive automation, where do you leverage it within the automation? The next thing is any automation that anyone is doing right now, we are highly recommending it should be internally only. No one should be externally leveraging agents yet within the marketplace. They're not ready. And we don't want to stub our toe with trying to leverage agents to external customers or client bases. And what I mean by an internal agent is, for example, here's a case study that we leveraged, and we were doing this at Unify, but now it's more sophisticated. So at Unify, we took our top 100 obligors from a concentration perspective, and we leveraged Google, Google Notices, and we would put the names in there tied to a Gmail, and if there was any pending news, we would receive an email. That's all automation. That news came to us before DNB or PayNet or any other type of notification. This could be something that's taking place in their geography, if it's taking place in terms of layoffs, or better yet, they're growing. And we can have a sales rep call them to offer more financing. So there's multiple ways. However, now with the tools, we can set up a task agent right within ChatGPT or Copilot, goes out, surfs, scrapes the internet once a week, twice a week, whatever you would desire, and then bring back what they find on a objective basis relative to a timeline.
You mentioned Able earlier, and how does the framework help turn some of your ideas into execution?
Right. So Able is built off the premise of analyze the situation, what you're trying to accomplish. We leverage this at Unify. Then after you analyze that, and I'm going to give a very high level, there's more, subcategories to Able.
Sure.
You analyze the situation. Okay, an example of that is when credit applications come in, we want to automate that versus someone manually typing in. And believe it or not, people are still typing in credit applications. So we wanted to map, so we analyze what is the problem we're trying to solve. Okay, we want to automate credit applications via OCR technologies. Okay, now what do we need to build to leverage, that ask, that what we're trying to analyze? So now we're going to build out a scope. We're going to look at what we're trying to identify. You have to ensure that you have your SOPs. So we go through all that. The next step of that framework is leverage. How are we going to leverage what we're building to execute? And it's a continuous circle. It's very similar to people say crawl, walk, run, water, seed, grow. Able's in that same type of design of analyze, because there are some things we analyze and say, you know what? AI is not, we don't need AI in this situation or technology in this situation. The process is good the way that it is.
Why is precision prompting more critical than most realize?
So when it comes to prompting, you have to look at the persona, task, the objective, and your output that you want from the model. And it's the persona is so important because you can change one or two words in your prompt and your output would be completely different. And that's driven by the tone. So as these models continue to advance, the prompting isn't going to be as important from a word parsing perspective. However, it's still going to be very critical on the output that you're trying to achieve. So people are getting frustrated because they would enter a question without any framework in regards to the prompt, have an output, and they would say, well, I could get that from Google. Well, in essence, that's what you just did. You didn't go into the strategic part of this or the strategic, output that you're looking for. Another inside baseball is give it an output that you want it to look like. So, for example, if you're working in a document that you like the format of that document, you could actually layer it, embed into your LLM in that document, and then your outputs going forward will look like that. So that the prompting at the end of the day for individuals and or organizations where we stand today, and as we mentioned earlier, this is changing at such a pace. There's things that I said a month ago are outdated, and I always, prerequisite to everything. Where we stand today, prompting is still as critical as anything else because most companies, again, are just leveraging Copilot within their system, within their ecosystem. And to drive these, you have to understand, if you're looking at Excel spreadsheet, you have to be very literal. I've driven my wife crazy because there's no more, well, maybes. It's very specific to the fact where if you say, I contacted them, I'm going to say, well, how did you contact them? Did you email them? Did you call them? Did you text them? Because if I'm driving that LLM, that's going to be important to the LLM of the follow-up or things that you're trying to achieve with that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so again, though, there's really, if you're prompting, there's no downside if you're working on your prompting, but the enhancement really comes when you use precision.
Great. So let's move from strategy to execution. How equipment finance companies are actually using AI today. Can you walk us through your 3-bucket model?
So it starts with the prompting. Of understanding how to drive the machine. The next one is automation, and there's really actually two areas of automation. One is your traditional automation that you use within organizations. The real secret and leverage is going to come from the AI automation, the AI agentic automation, and that's what I'm speaking about, Andrew. That needs to be internal before you go external with the AI piece of that. Just look at this past weekend. Grok went crazy on some things on X that it should never have said. That bad people, and there are bad people. These tools, we have to remember, for every good person, matter of fact, the bad people are probably that much farther ahead of us because we're reluctant to be proactive of leveraging this technology in our organizations, rightfully so. For them, they have nothing to lose. So they'll try the newest, best technology that there's out there. While we're talking about this, I would really this is probably the most important thing that I'm going to say during this whole time we're together. For anyone with families or special ones in their life, I would highly recommend you institute a code word for your conversations for any type of emergencies. I'm not trying to scare people, but the AI, the voice capabilities of these AI, especially if you're doing podcasts, it'd be real easy for a bad person to go out and say, I'm going to look for every Andrew Pace's podcast. I'm going to record his voice. I'm going to record his tone. I'm going to record how he speaks. And now I'm going to make a soundtrack to call his wife and say that he's in jail and he needs $5,000 wired to him right away. These are true stories, and it's already starting to happen. So we developed the code word for our family almost 7 months ago, and we updated. Our goal is to try and update it every quarter and have it be something completely different. And again, it's just precautionary. That's all it is. I hope we never, ever, ever, ever in a million years use it, ever. However, I don't want my wife to get a call. Hey, this is me, hon. I had a good time, and you know what? I need some money or whatever, and she would just go and do it, and I don't blame her. So, you really have to be looking. This is the downside of where we're headed.
Yeah. So what's the code word? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, maybe over a couple cocktails we can.
There you go.
I'll share it with you.
So. What can you say are some
and then
wins?
The third,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Andrew.
No,
and then
that's right.
Third
That's right.
piece of that is the data. And how are you leveraging data within your organization? And then you're going to be able to get to the predictive index or the predictive data of looking forward versus looking backwards and trying to look at future behaviors of your client base, either from a sales perspective, either from a renewal perspective, from a portfolio management perspective. Really, these tools, it's exciting to sit in boardrooms or in conference rooms and brainstorm on how these tools can be used, because there's no playbook yet. There's no, this is what you want to do. So that's really where it's exciting. And people are really building some cool ecosystems and really leveraging these tools in different ways that I'm able to participate in. And again, the creativity is exciting. Typically, they're younger though too, Andrew. That's why I get excited. You're dealing with 20 and 30-year-olds, which are a lot smarter than this guy. So,
or when we were that age.
We didn't have these tools, right?
No,
yeah.
not at all. No, remember when if you needed something, you had to go to the library to look it up?
You just dated us, yeah. Or a newspaper. I saw a guy last week on a flight reading a newspaper. I gave him a high five. I'm like, dude, still, he's like, I'll never change. Just reading the newspaper,
The encyclopedia salesman walking around the neighborhood, knocking on the doors. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some wins in automation? UCCs, monitoring, collections. What would you say are some wins with the automation with AI?
Really, where we're seeing it used is more of a beta approach. So what we're telling our organizations is start small. This is a long-term, a long-term strategy. This is just not another initiative where we have to throw AI or layer AI onto the business. Document parsing on an intake automation. Another area that we were using since 2019 is bank statement spreading. So what it will do, it'll come in, or you'll scan the statements. It will analyze the statements, look for fraud, look for. Actually, this is an area that we really were using it for. So say if the obligor was financing, but they were financing via someone that doesn't report to PayNet or DNB. Guess what? Now, if I have their bank statements, this tool will actually analyze it and give me actually what it believes that the comp debt looks like, because it's paying these other organizations. It also identifies any type of NCAs, and it gives you the analysis and breakout within 3 minutes. First, when we introduced that, of course, this is again in 2019. The credit manager was like, "You don't believe we're doing a great job?" I said, "That's not the case. You guys are doing an incredible job. This is just a tool to make you more efficient." And within a month, they couldn't live without it. And that tool just continues to expand. And there's so many different things. Another piece of automation that people are leveraging, as you mentioned earlier, is the UCC scraping across the internet. There's absolutely no reason nowadays you're not able to gather that information and use it however you feel fit within your team.
Yeah, no, it's something that we utilize on a regular basis. So if we could figure out a way to integrate that technology for our usage of scraping for UCCs, that would be great. How do you differentiate internal versus external automation?
So external automation is anything that you're doing with your client base. So, for example, there are tools out there where you can proactively email your client base without any type of conversation. And that typically, this has been in place in Salesforce and other CRM tools. If you email someone, they respond, it automatically kicks back another response and it keeps going. And I can quickly identify if that's taking place out of Salesforce already because there's no personalization. That's where it's critical. It's so critical, Andrew, that the humans, we stay in the loop, because the personalization around this is going to be more and more critical. Back to the fraud aspect. YouTube just announced yesterday that they will no longer monetize any faceless videos on YouTube. There was a big rush of AI production for YouTube videos, and I'm in some groups where people are monetizing, making a lot of money monetizing these headless videos that they were doing nothing except for just leveraging automation and writing scripts and things of that nature. Well, YouTube did the right thing and finally came out and said, we will no longer monetize any type of AI-made video content. which is great for people like you and I, because that was my fear of AI. I'm a firm believer in social media. I've been using social media since 2008. And I mentioned earlier, I won't even go on, I go on LinkedIn very few times now, just because there's so much AI slop. It's just, people just producing all types of content that adds no value except for look at me, attention over here. Where now, if you have to have that AI loop in anything that I post or write, I leverage AI. There's no doubt about it. However, I put RJ's contextual knowledge of what I'm seeing. I call it the wisdom. That's the difference is the wisdom. And I told my boys 6 months ago in regards to this, you should never have to come and ask me about anything in the world again. You have the smartest tool in your pocket with ChatGPT, and they both have the $20 subscriptions. We put them on with ours. However, where I come into play our conversations is around the human element and the wisdom of taking that knowledge and how you're going to leverage that knowledge in your personal life and your business. My son uses it in his business, Orbital Golf. My other son is a professional hockey player, semi-pro hockey player. He just became an agent. So he's now leveraging AI around statistics and reviewing players' data and things of that nature. And he's like, Dad, this is the coolest thing ever. But shocking, though, and he graduated a year ago, Andrew, is when he came home from his hockey season, he didn't touch AI during the entire season.
Wow.
And even when I come across or I interact with someone in his age, the mid-20s or so, and if they're looking for a job, first thing I ask is, are you dabbling in AI? Are you using it? And if they say no, I literally, I'll take them by the hands and say, you need to go home tonight and start learning about AI. Then you can put that AI on your resume, and guess what? Your chances will go up tremendously for an interview. I coached a buddy here in Michigan, was looking for a job, was unfortunately displaced. He went to a AI organization that sells law or legal services. Within 2 weeks, I had him trained up, AI, ChatGPTs, prompting, all the different models. He got the job because he was educated. He could walk in and talk the talk, and he was nervous because he said, I feel like an imposter. He said, I appreciate that. That means you're a human and you understand what's taking place and you're not full of ego. However, you're walking in with more knowledge than most people because of the time that you committed to this, because you had the time to allocate. And that's the biggest thing, Andrew. People don't have time. He did. Yeah. And he took advantage of it. So if you are job seeking one way or another, focus, the one skill that you can really make a difference right now is understanding AI.
My next question was going to be share a success story, and you shared about 4 of them right there. So, thank you.
Yep.
But, none of this works, though, without leadership buy-in. Let's talk about how organizations can overcome resistance. Why are leaders still hesitant to act on AI?
I wish I had an answer for that, because I think each situation is different. One, let's be very. I was having this conversation yesterday with a executive recruiter, a well-known executive recruiter in our industry. We came to the conclusion, or one of our conclusions is, if you're a senior leader in a bank-owned equipment financing company, and or it's even worse if you're bank-owned senior leadership, and you've been in that role, say, for 10 plus years, that means you're compensated probably pretty well. You have built up good faith, goodwill within that organization. The bank, your parent, most likely isn't giving you a lot of insight of where to go, what to do, or even how they're leveraging it possibly. And then you start thinking, okay, if I lean into this and I make a mistake and I lose my job, look at this job market right now. I don't see a lot of de novo startups taking place. I don't see a lot of growth right now in bank-owned leasing companies. I see a lot of acquisitions taking place. I hear a lot of discussions taking place. So I think that people are evaluating, rightfully so, do I want to be that person to put my name on something that fails, and then I'm looking for a job?
Right. Yeah.
And I don't have an answer for that. It's fear. And I don't blame them. especially the world we live in today. Back in 2021, 2022, I think you would see more leaders leaning into it. And that's just two guys talking on a phone coming up with that. Other than that, time. I really think it's time. And again, it's getting the institutional knowledge out of people's heads to build the SOPs and tasks to start with. You'd be shocked on how many, and this isn't equipment financing, this is business industries, doesn't matter what you're in, lack strong SOPs or they don't review them. SOPs should be reviewed just like your procedure, or just like your policy on an annual basis. SOPs should be part of that. And that's not what we're telling our clients. Every year we would have to redo our credit policy on an annual basis. Every summer we would start that when you would start your process of doing your financial draft for the upcoming year. Your SOPs, each manager should be doing the same thing and then capturing those SOPs. And as soon as you start that rhythm, then they're built. Now you can start layering the task and the AI on top of it. The task-oriented agents.
Yeah. I mean, AI is evolving so rapidly, you would probably have to update your policies monthly or even weekly.
So that's even another, yeah. And that's, Andrew, that's a great point that you raised, because a lot of my clients, especially in the beginning of the year, I said, I guarantee you didn't allocate any budget for AI training. And they're like, no. I go, why would you? When you're doing your budget in July, August, September, October, you heard about it, but you never realized it was going to come at this pace. So, piece of advice we're telling our clients right now, if you are leaning into your budgeting season in July, August, September, start allocating training, allocating maybe someone to come in and do your SOPs for you, a third party to come in and do that. Allocate some budget for tools. And that's where I come in to help assist with that. Because again, you don't have enough time to be able to understand where the AI tools, what LLMs, what new players, and look at the rise of the new players that are coming into our industry fast and furious, because they see a $1 trillion industry. There's opportunity. Maybe we can layer, we have an opportunity to help equipment finance companies with AI. So just be very careful and ask the right questions. Don't get caught up in the hype and sizzle. As long as you're talking about strategy and you know that you should be doing it. And at the end of the day, if you just want to start with a base question, ask everyone in your organization, what is one manual process you do not enjoy doing that you have to do on a regular basis? Internal only to start with. You could just start with that premise and start having that dialogue. And that's typically what we do within organizations. And then also, though, we help them logically work through the whole process. And it's fascinating where you get to the end and you think you've solved what you're going to do in terms of the automation. And it's always, oh, I forgot. So first draft is never complete. It's a very strategic, patient roadmap to get to the final SOP with the task with your agent.
Right. What would you say is the risk of waiting too long for organizations to overcome that resistance?
I've really changed my tone. February I spoke and I said they'll be out of business. Shame on them. They're sticking their head in the sand and they're not doing anything. As I said, I've developed a lot of empathy over the last couple of months just because I've seen how fast this is changing the world and the negative aspect of it. I think that if you aren't at least talking about it, you're probably in harm's way. Okay? If you're talking about it within an organization, are you truly having strategic conversations, or are you just talking about it? And the difference between just talking about it and a true strategic discussion is you're looking forward and guess what? You're feeling uncomfortable in that discussion because you're not really sure. For example, I'm talking about AI agentic agents. They're not ready for prime time, but they're coming. So that's why I go back and I keep drilling this in SOPs. That's the 6 months ago was prompting. You have to learn prompting. Now it is, you have to have solid SOPs. Probably 4 months from now in October, when we see each other in Minnesota or at the annual, it'll be something completely different.
Yeah. So let's talk about intrapreneurship and AI.
That's really where I get excited, because the definition of an entrepreneur, again, is someone who thinks like that business owner in the confines of a organization. And there's 5 characteristics to identify your entrepreneur within your organizations. And one of them is resourcefulness. The second one is contextual knowledge of the process. Well, guess what? With those two, just those two in AI, entrepreneurs are the game changers when it comes to the human in the loop for this. An example of that is I have a client. They actually hired someone. We assisted with writing the job description. It was a very loose job description. We put in there, though, entrepreneurship mindset wanted or required, and then we put in there learning of new technologies, i.e. AI, will be required. 150 apps. We weeded it down to 5 candidates. They landed on 1 candidate. Now, here's the challenge, though, with entrepreneurs, Andrew. The COO of the organization texts me on a Saturday night and says, and this is a company that they not track, but they know when someone's on, primarily because of the reason I'm about to tell you. He goes, RJ, I'm nervous. It's Saturday night at 8:00, and they have been on their computer since 2:00 this afternoon. I said, that's the downside of AI and entrepreneurship, because they get so excited and they can accomplish so much so fast. It's like a dopamine hit that they will not leave their monitors. I have to get away from my monitors, because these tools, you can get lost in them. You start in a certain area, and all of a sudden you've created, a whole new vertical in the equipment leasing industry because of the data's there, right? And here is the downside of AI too. AI, the biases of AI, like humans, right? They're always growing. They always want more. It's very critical when you're prompting to reground the task when you're talking to the LLM. So what we do is we embed in our prompting as the third prompt with the LLM. It goes back and regrounds to the original ask, to the original task. Because as you notice, it always offers what's next with its output. Do you want to do this next? Do you want to go here next? And a lot of times I'm like, I don't even know that existed, or what does that even do? So we will bring it back to the original task to stay grounded. And that's critical that your LLM stay grounded to the task and your knowledge base of what you're trying to accomplish. And that's where the whole, AI runs away. And that's the fear factor of AI. And it's up to the humans to rein it back in. It's another tool. The other thing to look at is these agents are teammates. They are teammates. And just like a teammate, when you hire a new employee doesn't show up and you say, welcome to the team, have a great day. You say, here's how we do this. This is how we do that. This is your job description. These are your tasks. Same thing with an agent.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So, in an industry that values personal relationships, how do you help leaders see AI as something that enhances, not replaces, human connection?
So let's just focus on sales aspect of this, because I receive a lot of calls relative to sales training, and I tell folks, as sales leader or CEO or whoever might be calling, that AI is not an all fix for your sales team. And what I mean by that is, if you have a poor sales performance or a poor sales team, AI will not improve that sales team or person. What these AI tools will do, though, they will take your high performers and make them Hall of Famers, because they're going to lean in and understand how to leverage them with the personalization. You have to have the personalization. And what I mean by that, can you imagine being able to go back and analyze your Outlook emails? I could go in, I have this tool, go in and say, analyze all my emails with Andrew Pace to ensure that I am not missing anything relative to our business conversations. And also, did I miss any personal information on Andrew? Because as humans, we're multitasking. I have 4 monitors here in front of me, plus a laptop. You're probably the same way. And if you're not, God bless you. You're better served like that, because it's overstimulation. We're running back to time at such a pace, we miss the little things. that's where you can go back as a human and identify those areas with AI to bring the human element back. The human element, the personalization, the human element are going to be critical for everyone's success. Specifically now, really for now. And there's so much cool technology to leverage with video and things of that nature. Also, Andrew, these tools are designed to allow us to have more time to engage with humans. Think about it. I can do an analysis around a spreadsheet or financial statement within 5 minutes and give me everything that if I sat there for a week plugging numbers into spreadsheets and analyze, I can now run it through a LLM that I trust, that I've trained, that I understand. And guess what? Now my credit analysis went from a day to an hour. So now I have 7 hours. It's up to you, though, as an individual, how you use those 7 hours. Do you make more phone calls? Do you go see more clients? Do you build your brand? Do you write thought leadership papers? It's not about just doing more and more and more and more and more. It's the human element coming into it to leverage the relationship piece of it.
Right. Yeah. Automate the things that you can so you free up more time to do that personalization.
The personal side of it, the personal side of any industry you're in now is going to be that much more critical, because I don't know about you, I don't like doing business any longer with big, and I'm not knocking big companies, but big faceless companies. I want to do business with people that I know personally, that I'm going to make a difference for, that are good humans and we're like-minded. I think the days of the whole behind, I do business with so-and-so because it's so-and-so, because there's too many alternatives now.